Number 10. North Hollywood Shootout. The North Hollywood Shootout, which took place on February the 28th of 1997, is often regarded as the most intense gun battle in U.S. police history. After robbing a Bank of America branch, Larry Phillips Jr. and the Romanian-born Emil Matasareanu exited the building and engaged the Los Angeles Police Department in a massive shootout. The men, who'd been suspected in 2 armored car robberies, were carrying a hefty arsenal consisting of several rifles that had been illegally modified for fully automatic fire. Matasareanu and Phillips also wore heavy-plated body armor, which protected them from pistol and shotgun fire, which were the standard weapons for local police patrols at the time. Almost 2,000 rounds were exchanged in the ensuing firefight, which ultimately also involved SWAT officers. Phillips and Matasareanu were killed, with the latter succumbing to blood loss after being shot in the legs 29 times. 12 officers and 8 civilians were injured in the shootout. The incident prompted the arming of the LAPD and other departments nationwide with semi-automatic, selective fire, and automatic rifles. Number 9. Michael Player. Michael Player was a serial killer who operated in the Los Angeles neighborhood of Skid Row in September and October of 1986, also known as the Skid Row Slayer. He claimed at least 10 victims, the majority of whom were homeless people. In the early hours of the morning, Player would execute his victims by shooting them in the back of the head, usually while they slept. On October the 9th, he attempted to kill a homeless man, but the victim survived and gave the authorities a description. The following day, Player was found dead in a LA hotel of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A search was conducted of the apartment. The police discovered blood-stained shoes and 2 pistols, which a ballistic examination would later match to those used in the Skid Row Slayer murders. The motive for his killing spree, as well as Player's reason for taking his own life, remains unknown. Number 8. Jamie Osuna. In November of 2011, Jamie Osuna brutally murdered mother of 6, Yvette Pena, at a California motel. The 37-year-old victim had only met Osuna the night before her death. She was found stabbed in the back with knives and scissors. During his 2017 trial, the face-tattooed killer showed an utter lack of remorse for his crime and openly mocked Pena's family. Osuna pled guilty to 5 felony charges in order to avoid the death penalty. His dark and deranged side would gain media attention once more in March of 2019. That's when he killed his cellmate inside California's Corcoran State Prison in a manner which was described as exceptionally sadistic. 44-year-old Luis Romero was tortured and then decapitated with an improvised weapon. Osuna had removed one of Romero's eyes, severed some of his fingers, and cut out part of his lung. It's unclear if the mutilation had entirely occurred while the victim was still alive, but investigators believe Romero was conscious for at least part of the time. It was deemed that Osuna had acted with the specific purpose of inflicting extreme pain. He pled guilty and, with his prior conviction, was eligible for the death penalty. According to subsequent reports, the man was found incompetent to stand trial and sent to a mental health institution. Number 7. Corey Hughes. In November of 2017, a California inmate sporting a distinctive face tattoo escaped from a work crew near Interstate 5 in Stockton. 27-year-old Corey Hughes was serving time on a weapons charge at the minimum security honor farm in French Camp. Hughes, who had a homemade skull tattoo across his face, chose to escape even though he was scheduled for release in February. He was recaptured by the authorities less than a month later. The sheriff's department had received multiple tips regarding the fugitive's whereabouts, some of which were reportedly attributed to his distinctive tattoo. He was apprehended at a Stockton residence by a task force who deployed a K-9 unit on the property. Number 6. Murder of Robert Hollis. To this day, the gruesome 2015 murder of Robert Hollis remains a mystery. 75-year-old Hollis, who was legally blind, sang in several church choirs and was a beloved member of his Inglewood community. In June of 2015, he was found decapitated in his apartment. Nothing appeared to be missing from Hollis's home, so the attack and mutilation weren't connected to a robbery. The elderly man's head was never found. His family, who was cleared by the police, feared that the brutal killing had been connected to a satanic ritual. Number 5. Adrian Herrera. On April the 10th of 2020, surveillance cameras in Santa Ana, California, captured a brutal attack on a homeless man. As he was sitting on the sidewalk in front of a closed business, the man was approached by a cyclist. He was dressed in black and had covered his face. The police would later name 45-year-old Adrian Herrera, also homeless, as the main suspect. Herrera doused the unnamed victim in flammable fluid and, as he scrambled to get away, flicked his lighter and set him on fire. The homeless man was rapidly engulfed by flames. He was subsequently taken to a local burn center in critical condition after sustaining first, second, and third-degree burns on his upper body. Herrera fled on his bike, but was later arrested on suspicion of arson and attempted murder. Number 4. Dwayne Wallach. In June of 2020, a California man was arrested for killing and then cannibalizing his grandmother. Police officers were called to the Richmond home of 90-year-old Ruby Wallach by the woman's daughter. She had raised the alarm after finding her bleeding on the family room floor. 37-year-old Dwayne Wallach, Ruby's grandson, was in the same room, covered in blood. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Dwayne straddling his grandmother. He was eating her remains while pulling chunks from her head and neck with his bare hands. Dwayne ignored the officers' warnings and was shot with a stun gun, at which point he became extremely aggressive. 4 officers struggled to physically remove him from the home. Dwayne had been Ruby's primary caregiver for a number of years, and he had no criminal convictions or a history of mental illness. He'd murdered his grandmother with a knife and an ice pick before gruesomely mutilating her body. Dwayne's motive remains unknown, but the authorities believe he was acting under the influence of a synthetic drug. Number 3. Ranch Fire. In 2018, the Mendocino Complex fire in Northern California obliterated 280 structures and caused upwards of $257 million in property damage. By surface, it's the second largest fire to have occurred in the state, up to the recording of this video. It covered nearly 460,000 acres, which, to compare, is a surface area considerably larger than that of Los Angeles. 1 firefighter was killed while battling the blaze and 3 others suffered non-lethal injuries. The disaster consisted of the ranch fire and the river fire, which burned collectively for nearly 3 months. The ranch fire was significantly larger, and its origin was traced to a man who was reportedly trying to plug the entrance to a wasp nest using a hammer and a stake. The sparks generated by his hammering ignited dry grass, and before long the blaze grew out of control. The fires were first reported in late July, and it wasn't until September the 18th of 2018 that they were completely put out. Today's topic was requested by OGamer, Dishan Zelaya, and Mustafa Atheist. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Dunbar Armored Robbery. The largest cash robbery in United States history took place on September the 12th of 1997 at the Dunbar Armored Facility in downtown Los Angeles. It was orchestrated by Alan Pace III, a regional safety inspector for the cash handling company. While on the job, he studied the LA Armored Car Depot and knew that the vault was left open on Friday nights due to the large amount of money being moved. He enlisted the help of 5 childhood friends and provided them with camera locations and detailed floor plans. On the night of September the 12th, the men left the house party and hit the facility equipped with ski masks, radio sets, handguns, and a shotgun. Without firing a single shot, the robbers subdued all the employees and bound them with duct tape. Pace knew which bags held the largest bills, and within 30 minutes the crew had loaded $18.9 million into a U-Haul truck. The robbers also took the recording devices for the security cameras and left almost no evidence. The 6-strong crew then returned to the house party, thus securing their alibi. Pace had been fired from Dunbar the day before the robbery for tampering with company vehicles. He became a suspect in the aftermath, but the police couldn't connect him to it. The men waited for several months before they started laundering the money. They nearly evaded justice when one of the robbers accidentally paid a real estate broker with a stack of cash bound that had the original currency straps. Roughly 2 years after the robbery, he was arrested and gave up the others, including Pace, who was sentenced to 24 years. Number 1. Freeway killers. Throughout California's history, a significant number of serial killers have committed horrific murders across the state, but the freeway killers are arguably among the most prolific. In its most infamous iterations, the freeway killer epitaph has been used in connection to 3 separate and unrelated serial killers. All 3 of them were active around the same time, exclusively targeted males and mostly disposed of their victims near California freeways. Patrick Wayne Kearney, who operated from the early 60s to the late 70s, is one of the most prolific killers in US history. He was charged with 21 counts of murder, but law enforcement suspected he'd killed up to 43 people. Randy Stephen Kraft claimed the majority of his victims in California, and he was also known as the Scorecard Killer. Following his arrest in 1983, a coded list with 61 terms and phrases was found in his car, and it's believed that it referred to his victims, with some entries suggesting double murders. Currently imprisoned at San Quentin State Prison, Kraft is believed to have claimed 67 victims. Between 1979 and 1980, William Bonin murdered at least 21 boys and young men in Southern California. He was described by his prosecutor as the most arch-evil person who ever existed. Bonin spent 14 years on death row and was ultimately executed via lethal injection at San Quentin in 1996. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click on one of the links on your screen for more videos.